What's up everyone, it's Tensei here, and this video will be a continuation of yesterday's video. So yeah, as I said, we will be getting Axel and Jesse confirmed in the GX box, unlike my original prediction, but yeah, that's just how things go. I guess we at least have more information. But yeah, Axel Brody used volcanics mostly and some other just generic pyro stuff, and in my opinion this would be a great opportunity to just introduce generic fire cards in the speed duel format that are not necessarily tied to Axel or volcanics, but we don't really have a lot of fire stuff. Like there was some drag stuff, but that was dinosaurs really, and I think this way we would get some like actual pyro stuff and make some, I don't know, people like pyro stuff, and some people especially like volcanics. But the boss monster here is Volcanic Doomfire. So Doomfire must be special summoned by sending a face-up Tri-Blaze Accelerator you control a graveyard, and then it has two battle effects. So during your opponent's battle phase, your opponent must attack this monster with any attack potion monsters they control, and if it destroys a monster by battle, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls and inflict 500 damage for each. So it's slightly slow to bring out since you need a Tri-Blaze Accelerator, but luckily the Blaze Accelerator reload does become Tri-Blaze Accelerator, so you don't need to use the Tri-Blaze necessarily, although it's a trap, so it's still slightly slow. I think this card is not that great and probably needs a skill to gain competitive viability, but it's a nice beater, and honestly with reload it's not too expensive to bring out either. Then your best normal summon here would be Volcano Rocket, who adds a Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand on normal summon. This would kinda be low-key power creeping stuff since it's a 1900 beater with a good on-summon effect, and currently we only really have like Wars Raider and Charging Guy as free normal summons. But it only adds spells and traps, so it's not like a Stratos that just adds you more field presence easily every turn. So yeah, good card, but I don't see a real problem with it. Then you have some other beater stuff that's a little less good. There's level 5 Volcanic Hammer that once per turn deals damage equal to the number of volcanics in your grave times 200, but it cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. So yeah, not attacking is kinda lame, but let's say your opponent is stalling with like Zombinas and giant rats and stuff, you don't really necessarily want to attack since your attacks would do nothing and at worst advance your opponent's game state. So it's like kinda cool. Level 5, kinda unfortunate, but honestly if you just get to resolve this a couple of times, it's going to deal some decent damage. And Slicer is smaller, level 4, but 1800 attack is still not too small, and it can do 500 damage each turn, but it can't attack that turn either. So it starts off with 500, so it needs no setup unlike Hammerer, but also it caps at the 500, so you can do some huge damage in the late game either. Then Volcano Counter is interesting, so if you take battle damage while it's in the graveyard, you banish this and then deal damage equal to battle damage to your opponent. This effect is unfortunately mandatory, so if you take some small chunk of damage from a battle, you'll have to activate this. And also, like if you die before this gets to activate, you can't force a tie that way either. But let's say you survive like a 2000 attack, that's still a way to just do the same damage to your opponent, and that can be lethal. And also, like, if you have multiples of these, they all trigger, so it can be a nice insurance in the late game. We do have some counters to grave effects like the Decor and Soul Release if these cards were to really become relevant. And yeah, Volcanic Shell. This is a nice advantage engine, so once per turn you can pay 500 and add another Volcanic Shell from deck to hand. This would be fuel for the Blaze Accelerator cards mostly, and it's also potentially viral despair fodder. And if you use it with Twisted Personality, you also gain a counter from paying 500 life points. Overall, really good card, and I think it's guaranteed to be in, honestly, with Axel. Like, it's just such an iconic piece of his strategy. And then Volcanic Blaster. If it's destroyed and sent to a graveyard by battle, you can place a volcanic monster in your deck on top of your deck. I mean, it's just kinda lame. Yeah, you get to stack your deck, but Honestly, there are better cards to play, but it's the volcanic archetype is really small. I think we're going to get most of them except for maybe Scattershot, since I think Scattershot is kinda insane. And I also didn't include Wildfire. It's a little more acceptable than Scattershot as a field wipe, but yeah, no, it's still like a way to clear the field in your opponent's end phase kinda too easily, in my opinion. And then Volcanic Queen. It's a mini lava golem. Tribute one of your opponent's monsters to summon it to their field. And the controller can once per turn send one other card they control to the grave to inflict 1000 damage. And in the controller's end phase, you either have to tribute one other monster or take 1000 damage. I think it's just mostly a worse Santa Claus, and people aren't really running 3 Santa Claus anyway, like 1 or 2 at most. But yeah, it's a volcanic card. It does some burn damage. Maybe you could do something. No, I don't think it's really going to do anything, sorry. Yeah, that's for the volcanic monsters. Then the Blaze Accelerator stuff, so you target one monster your opponent controls, send a pyro with 500 or less attack from hand to grave and destroy that target. But you cannot declare an attack during the turn you activate this effect. So this is where the previous volcanic monster effects also come in handy. Since you already stop your own attacks with Blaze Accelerator, it doesn't really matter how many times you stop your attacks. Yeah, like it doesn't. They just all do the same restriction, so you're not more hurt by activating more of these. This only works with small fires, but you have like Counter and Shell and potentially some other non-archetypal stuff. Then Tri-Blaze Accelerator, which is the tribute for Volcanic Doomfire, needs to send the Blaze Accelerator first from your field to the graveyard, and then you can send any pyro from your hand to grave and destroy one monster your opponent controls and inflict 500 damage to your opponent. But you also can attack that turn. So it's a little costly to first activate Blaze, then this, and then Doomfire. If they copy Duel Links, there's actually a skill that adds like Blaze and Tri and Volcanic Doomfire 1 by 1. So they could do something like that, but yeah, I'm not really going to be educated on what Konami thinks is an appropriate skill. The skills they make vary so much in power level, it's kinda insane. And then the final Blaze Accelerator is Reload. So honestly, I've seen some people say this is too good to be introduced, but I think it's completely fine without Scattershot. With Scattershot, this would be an easy field wipe, quick effect, and even works from the grave. But if it's just drawing cards, it's still good. You could definitely make like a functional volcanic deck. You still need good cards, but I don't think it's toxic without Scattershot. So as I said, it becomes Tri-Blaze, so you get a delayed tribute fodder for Doomfire. And then during either player's main phase, you can send a volcanic card from hand to grave and draw a card. And then during either player's main phase, you can banish disc from your grave and send a volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard. So unlike the other Blaze Accelerators, this doesn't destroy anything by itself, but it draws cards, and it's searchable by Rocket, so it's a really good advantage engine. I was kind of wondering if someone would try like a Volcanic Moth deck using Blaze Accelerator Reload to turbo into Parasite, and I mean, that's possible. I don't think it's more degenerate than like using Allure and Breaker and stuff. It's maybe another variant. But even in that case, the Moth part is the degenerate part and not the Volcanics in my opinion. And it would at least make some new fresh Moth variants, which is at least more fresh than the current ones, right? But yeah, there's one more actual volcanic named trap, but yeah, there's nothing that interacts with volcanic traps. You get to return up to 3 volcanics from your graveyard to your deck. This is just kind of worse than one of the upcoming generic pyro monsters, so yeah, we'll discuss that more then. Backfire is a continuous trap that says you do 500 damage each time your fire monster is destroyed and sent to the grave. So it's small and slow burn, but honestly it stacks up pretty quickly in 4000 life point format, so it's decent. Then Firewall. If your opponent declares direct attack, you can negate that attack by banishing a pyro from your grave, but you have to pay 500 life points during each standby phase. So actually this would benefit from problem solving card text as well and was used in the anime, so yeah, it's fine. Protects you from getting destroyed by some more direct attacks, but of course they can just destroy this with Breaker or something beforehand. Then this is the good recycling effect. So when Royal Firestorm Guards is a normal summon, you can target 4 Pyro type monsters in your grave, shuffle all 4 into a deck and draw 2 cards. So as you have the Volcanic Shells, all 3 in your grave, you can shuffle like 2 of them and maybe a Rocket, Counter, Slicer, something. Maybe even a second copy of Royal Firestorm Guards and get some extra cards in your hand. It's really nice if you get to keep one of the shells in your grave, since then one of them that remains can activate and add another from your deck. It's of course a little slow, you're not going to have 4 Pyros in your grave on your first turn, most likely, unless they get some nice skill to facilitate that. But yeah, it's going to keep you fueled in the late game, so you don't run out of fuel within a couple of your first turns. Infernal Flame Emperor was actually used by Axel, but just like as a discard fodder for some effect. But I think it's kinda decent, at least for the draft format, maybe a little expensive and restricted for constructed deck building. But yeah, Infernal Flame Emperor is a level 9 fire pyro monster with 2700 attack, and when it's tribute summoned you can banish up to 5 fire monsters in your grave and destroy an equal number of spells and traps on the field. So unfortunately a lot of the good back row will be able to respond to this effect, but let's say your opponent has a lot of continuous effects on the field, this will just destroy all of them and at least force your opponent's back row, if not anything else. It's okay, I don't think we have a lot of support to make playing level 9s worth it though. Inferno is kinda like the Earth Spirit we already have. So you can summon this by banishing a fire monster in your grave, and if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to do 1500 damage to your opponent. So 1500 is a lot, but Inferno is 1100 starting attack, so it's going to be a little hard to do that first destruction by battle to achieve the effect damage. It's a free special summon, and I assume that will become more relevant as we get more support for like different kinds of decks, to be honest. Spirit of Flame, same thing. It gains 300 attack during your battle phase, so a reverse the Rock Spirit effect. But yeah, it's a 2k body on your turn and 17 still on your opponent's turn, which is not too small. Just a free special summon. It's cool. Solar Flare Dragon is kinda toxic in my opinion, but it has out, so maybe we can get it. And I know a lot of old school players have played like burn decks with Solar Flare Dragons. So if you have another Pyro, this can't be attacked, meaning that 2 of these will form a Gentle Mandor lock. And the annoying part is that during each of your end phases you do 500 damage to your opponent. So like if you have 2 of these, your opponent is on a 4 turn clock, so unlike the Gentle Mandor lock, you're actually going to get closer to your win condition by having Solar Flare Dragons up. And yeah, the other cards here in the side deck are also just generic fire stuff. So Thestalos, we already have 1 Monarch. I think this is a strong Monarch as well, but maybe not too strong. So Thestalos on tribute summon discards a random card from your opponent's hand and does damage equal to its level. So compared to Dark Enchanter, this already activates on tribute summon. So even if they have an Offerings or Book of Moon for this, you'll get to do the discard. And yeah, it has low defense, but it already gains some value on tribute summon. I think a lot of Inner Conflict decks would try this out. Maybe not all, like there could be some other new good tribute stuff, but a lot of decks would probably still like Shinzo or Kaiser more. Flammable Firedog is probably my favorite among these generic fire stuff. So if it destroys a monster by battle, you get to special fire with 200 or less defense from your deck. This would kind of make you also consider being careful with the other fire stuff you add. Like, not the volcanics, but some of the other stuff here are pretty big bodies with 200 defense, so Some of them are kind of mutually exclusive. Like if you add Firedog, you might not want to add Hippogriff. That's a 200 defense beater that can be targeted, but yeah. It's kind of like the Hydrogeddon that I was hyped for in the Bastion video, but I'm getting more doubtful about Bastion with these new confirmed characters anyway. The good value engine that's still reasonable in my opinion would be Neoflamvell Lady off of the Flammable Dog. So Neoflamvell Lady can send a fire from your hand to grave and then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it as a quick effect. And that is pretty strong, I will admit. Maybe a too strong card in some ways, but it's still like you need a lot of fires. It might be decent. It's a newer card, which is I like seeing like some newer cards that never got a chance to shine in TCG since they were released so late, like some legacy support cards like Neoflamvell Lady. And yeah, if this is banished, if a card is banished from your opponent's grave while you control this, you can send a fire monster with 200 or less defense from your deck to the graveyard, except Neoflamvell Lady. So it also fuels your graveyard for some rekindling effects or any revival stuff you might have. And then another Flamvel still, Neoflamvell Saber gains 600 attack if your opponent has 4 or less cards in their graveyard, but if they have 8 or more, this card loses 300 attack. So of course this would have synergy with the Flamvel Lady, banishing your cards to make sure that this stays as a 2100 beater, and it's just cool, has the 200 magic number defense. Flammable Counter negates a spell or trap by banishing a fire with 200 defense from your graveyard. We don't have a lot of counter traps, and honestly many people might enjoy having things that way for now, but yeah, it's again like restricted. It's not like Solemn Judgment that's going to be in every single deck. Flammable Pound is a simple battle searcher as a monster with 200 defense. Actually, yeah, it adds any monster, not just fire monsters. Yeah, I didn't realize actually. There might be some other 200 defense monsters, but I can't like think of. Wait, does Parasite Paranoid have 200 defense? Maybe. Yeah. Level Landlord is a level 6, but you can normal summon it without tributing, but if you do so, it's going to the graveyard in the end phase. And if this is destroyed and sent to the grave, you can target one of your banished fires and add that target to your hand. Again, this is kind of pushing the Firedog, since it could summon a 2100 beater from your deck, but it is a battle effect. I don't know, it's a strong effect, but wait, maybe we want to push fire cards here. Rekindling summons all of your 200 defense fires from your grave, but they're banished during the end phase. So this has been limited in the TCG before, not currently, but that should tell you that it has been powerful in the past. And yeah, it would be a good win condition here. It might be a little slow to set up again, so depending on the entire card pool, who knows. Circle of the Farks is another revival spell, but you have to destroy a fire monster you control to summon a fire from your grave. It's just kind of cool. It dodges some removal being a quick play spell, so you can chain it to like Offerings or Book of Moon on your stuff. Goku, the Power of Malice, summons itself by controlling a fire monster, but then you have to target a fire you control and destroy it. So yeah, it's a big special summon, but it's just kind of a quick tribute summon in the end. And then during your standby phases you get to spawn a Fireball token. And you can tribute one other fire monster to give this card 500 attack, to make it run over stuff like Shinzo or Nexi Tank Cannon. Sealing Ceremony of Katon says that you banish a fire monster from your grave to target a card in your opponent's graveyard, banish that target. So this might be a little more reasonable than the Flammable Lady, as it's a trap and not a body on the field. But yeah, you will end up having some extra fires in your grave anyway. It's a little more tolerable than the other sealing ceremonies that require you to tribute stuff or discard stuff, for example. Could be a nice side deck option. Ultimate Baseball Kid gains 1000 attack for each face of fire monster on the field except itself, including your opponent, so that could come up. And then you can send a fire monster you control the grave to do 500 damage to your opponent. So it's also like a win con in the late game, so you don't need to get an attack through. not once per turn, but yeah. I guess you could tribute to use Rekindling and do quick 2000 damage, but that also needs a lot of setup. UFO Turtle, just to accompany Giant Rat as a fire beater, no, not beater, floater, fire floater. Gaia Soul is a 2000 normal summon, letting you beat over some cute stuff, and you can also tribute 2 Pyros to give this 1000 attack for each, and it does piercing, which means it could get close to game after the tributing effect, but in the end phase you have to destroy this, so it's really like a glass cannon attack. It can go up by itself, but yeah, if you tribute 2 and then this destroys itself, you're in a really bad position if you didn't win that turn. And finally there's Hazy Flame Hippogriff, so it can be targeted by effects and opponent's effects rather, and once per turn you can tribute 1 other fire monster to give this card 300 attack. So after 1 tribute it's a 2400 beater, can be targeted, so it's immune to Parasite Paranoid, which is, without a ban list, probably going to be relevant after the GX box as well. But yeah, I mean, I hope mod decks at least adapt somewhat to freshen things up here. But yeah, this has been a long video since, yeah, I really think Konami should take advantage of the Axel Brody being in as the first dedicated fire player. There's like 35 cards on my list here, so not all of them will definitely, like, they can't put all of these in. They can put over like 20 cards, maybe if they add some of the more generic stuff into the extra stuff, not dedicated to any duelist in the box. But yeah, a lot of these will be skipped, but I think most of these would be fine. Like, not all of them at once maybe, but there's a lot of decent options they could go for. But if you have anything to say, please comment, and if you enjoyed this video, like the video, and subscribe to my channel for more speed duel content. And I hope that my prediction will hold for now, at least, without like some other news. We probably won't get any news for a while. TCG is really stingy on news. They just don't give us a lot of information until the set actually is like 2 weeks from release. But there's a lot of speculation to do until then. So hope to see you guys later. Bye.